Number 3. Someone was trying my front door at 1 a.m. I live in a pretty big apartment complex with multiple towers and 4 apartments on each floor. We live on the 12th floor, so random people wandering around up here at 1 a.m. isn't exactly normal. I was home alone one night, just playing games in my room. My younger brother was at a sleepover and my parents were coming back from out of town later that night. Around 1 a.m. I heard scratching near the front door. I didn't think much of it because stray dogs somehow end up roaming around the buildings all the time. Then I heard the door knob jiggle. I walked over and banged on the door hard, expecting to scare a dog away. Everything immediately went silent. I looked through the peephole and froze. There was a barefoot man standing outside my door in an old, dirty tracksuit. He was a few steps back, almost like he'd jumped when I hit the door. He was just staring at it with his eyes wide open. We stayed like that for what felt like 5 or 10 seconds. Then he slowly started walking towards my door again. I slammed my fist against the door a second time, even harder. The guy immediately turned around and sprinted down the stairs. I called security, but nobody picked up. A couple of hours later, when my parents got home, I called again and asked if anyone matching the description had been seen around the complex. Nope. The thing that still bothers me is that our complex has really high walls around it and a single gated entrance. I still have no idea how that guy got into the building or if he ever actually left. Number 2. You grab one, I'll grab the other. The year was 1991 and I was 6 years old living in Winnipeg. My family was already in the middle of an unthinkable nightmare. My 10-year-old sister, Robin, had just passed away. I was the only child left, and the grief in our house was heavy and suffocating. I went over to my friend Holly just to get out of the house, looking for any shred of normal childhood. We decided to do what we always did, ride our bikes around the block. It was a beautiful, quiet summer day, the kind of afternoon where you feel like nothing bad can happen. But on our third lap around the neighborhood, the atmosphere changed. We noticed a van. It was a beat-up white freezer van, no windows in the back, just a solid, rusted metal shell. As it pulled up behind us, it didn't just drive past, it slowed to a crawl, and the engine had this horrible, rhythmic rattle to it, a sound like metal grinding on metal. Being so young, we didn't immediately have that stranger danger alarm go off. We were mostly just confused. We actually slowed down and stopped our bikes to see what they wanted, and the van stopped right along with us, idling heavily. The passenger window was already rolled down, revealing a pitch black interior that seemed to swallow the sunlight. I looked at the passenger and the image is burned into my brain. He was gaunt, with yellow teeth and long, frizzy, straggly hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. Then the world seemed to move in slow motion. The passenger door swung open. The man put one heavy foot onto the pavement, shifting his weight as if he was about to lunge. At the same time, I heard the heavy, clunky thud of the side sliding door beginning to retract. The passenger didn't even look at us. He turned his head back into the darkness of the van and said 7 words I will never forget. You grab one, I will grab the other. He said it loud enough for me to hear it clearly, like he didn't even care that we were listening. Pure, cold adrenaline hit us. We didn't scream or cry, we just slammed our feet onto the pedals. We were only a few houses away, and I remember my heart hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. We didn't even stop to kick our kickstands. We ditched the bikes right on the grass and in the driveway and scrambled inside, slamming the front door and throwing the lock. Holly's mom was in the house and was immediately confused. Seeing us bursting crying and shaking, she assumed we had just fallen off our bikes and scraped our knees. We were gasping, trying to tell her a van was following us, but to her, the rattling engine she could hear outside just sounded like normal street noise. There was no reason for her to be afraid until she looked at us and saw the sheer terror in our eyes. She went to the front window and her face went completely pale. She saw the van. She watched as it slowly, deliberately creeped past the house, almost at a walking pace. With our bikes lying right there on the lawn like neon markers, they knew exactly where we had gone. She stayed by that window, her hand on the lock, telling us it was going to be okay. But she never took her eyes off the street until that rattling engine finally faded into the distance. When my mom came to pick me up later, she was already a shell of herself from the loss of my sister. Telling her that I had almost been taken, that she had almost lost her only remaining child in the same week, devastated her. It was a second trauma piled on top of a fresh wound. It's a weight I still carry, realizing that if we had been just a few seconds slower, my mother's world would have been completely extinguished. So, to the man with the yellow teeth and the people in the back of that rattling white van, let's not meet. Number 1. Waiting to smoke possibly saved my life. Hi, first time poster here. After reading and listening to countless stories, I thought it was time to share one of my own. Around 2 years ago, my friend Jenny decided to throw a party for her birthday. She had not celebrated her birthday in many years and was really excited to do so again. Something important to know about Jenny is that she was in active addiction at this time. It was all kinds of different drugs. I think it mostly depended on whatever she could get at the time, but it was bad. She is a lovely person and doing very well right now, but I do think that her drug use was one of the reasons why this all went so wrong. Her friend circle consisted mostly of people she's used with. She had a few good and close friends, but not a lot. A week before the party, I asked her how many people she had invited, and she said around 80. I laughed and asked her why so many. She said, well, I also invited people that I don't know really well, but they are chill. This was already kind of a red flag for me. That night, I had another party before hers, so I was decently tipsy. I knew that the other party would mostly be people that I did not know on hard drugs, which I had never done and had no experience with at the time, so I needed some liquid courage. I went with my friend Noah. She had rented a small venue to fit all the people. It was a pretty much abandoned lot on a very quiet street. There were almost no houses, only a few factories. The layout is pretty important to know. Basically, you had the entrance with a tiny yard for people to smoke. Then you had to enter the building and go up the stairs to get to a living room or kitchen type area, and next to that was a small room with a DJ. Everything was fine at the beginning. I did have a lot of fun. Around 1, there was a small fight. I didn't witness it, but I was told immediately after. Apparently, there were 4 guys who tried to get in, but only one of them was actually invited. They were told to leave by some of the guys, and when they didn't, there was a small fight. Nothing noteworthy, I thought then. I asked Noah if he wanted to go out for a smoke. He said that he'd finish his conversation and then we could go together. A little while later, we walked out of the kitchen and towards the stairs, but there were like 6 people bundled up at the top of the stairs. Instinctively, I took a step back. I was just turning around to Noah with this what the fuck look when we heard people screaming and glass shattering. All the people who were standing in front of us jumped back and so did we. There was more screaming and people stumbling onto the stairs. I then saw Oliver, one of the few people I knew at that party, walking up the stairs, head covered in blood. Another guy I knew by face with a bleeding nose, and my friend Jason grasping his shoulder, his girlfriend behind him. Earlier that evening, I stupidly and drunkenly fell on the cement with both knees, scraping them open. But because of that, I knew where the first aid kit was. I never have any issues with blood. I can't handle other bodily fluids, but when someone is bleeding, I can help them, no problem. I saw Oliver go into the kitchen and wanted to go after him to help him. Now, this is about to get kind of gross, but bear with me. I saw Oliver had something stuck in his forehead. Because I heard the glass shattering, I assumed it was glass, but when I got closer, I saw that it was a piece of his skull sticking out of his forehead. That was too much for me. Instantly sober, I promptly turned around and went into another room. He was surrounded by a lot of people though, and 911 was called immediately. Turns out that those guys who were rejected from the party came back with 30 other guys, carrying bats and steel pipes. They just started hitting the first people they saw, and they left as quickly as they came. The whole attack lasted no more than 30 seconds. I found my friend Jason still grasping his shoulder. He and his girlfriend were closest to the entrance of the property, so they were attacked first. Yes, these cowards did indeed beat up women. They did not care at all. Jason's shoulder was dislocated. Luckily, his girlfriend wasn't too wounded. Police and an ambulance arrived pretty quickly. Oliver was taken to the hospital and luckily made a full recovery after surgery. My friend Jenny was in hysterics, both because of what happened and because of whatever was in her system. The cops were no help. At one point, they yelled at her because she was too upset to form a complete sentence. They left after a while, and so did most of the people. Noah and I were still there. We tried to help whatever we could. I was still in shock and kind of numb, but what snapped me out of my daze was seeing people scrubbing the blood covering the staircase. There was nothing more I could do there, and more importantly, I wanted to go home. Noah went with me and we stayed up for hours talking and processing everything. To think that if we had decided to go smoke even a minute sooner, or if Noah wasn't having that one conversation, we would have been in the middle of this all. It would also have been a very real possibility that these guys had guns or knives. We lived in a pretty rough area, which is even more terrifying to think about. Hands down the worst party I've ever been to. So yeah, to those guys who ruined my friend's party, let's not meet again.